2 years ago, when I started doing all sorts of odd gigs on Craigslist, especially tutoring, and also more recently, I've been doing some photography as well. One of the most frustrating aspects is people who cancel at the last minute. I know I love doing these things, but more importantly, I have bills to pay, and at the same time, I don't have a whole lot of time. Every cancellation I deal with is time that's taken out of my personal time budget, right? Time taken away from my computer games, or from meeting my future wife, or just personal development, if you will. So I try to put a strong stance on canceling as early as I can with my clients. I usually forgive the first cancellation, but then I set a policy then. I don't want to presume people will cancel, so that's why I don't really set a cancellation policy before it happens the first time. And a good 90% of people never have that first time, unless it's some kind of a medical emergency or anything like that. But I sometimes get clients who are very slick with how they handle their cancellations. Some people might call and literally use the word cancel, but more likely, they're gonna call and want to start at a different time. So yesterday I was going to tutor somebody from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. It's a 2-hour session, and we usually meet at Redmond Library, which is really convenient. It's walking distance for me, and anytime I have to drive somewhere, it really cuts into what I'm charging in two different ways. First, I gotta spend money on the car, and I drive not too reliable car, and every time I go there seems to be something that wants to shut down. So right now my air conditioning isn't working. I talked about that in a previous video. The other day I blew a tire, and every time I drive there, something wants to fall apart. Not to mention that, it's just some expense, right? The gasoline is very expensive here in Washington State. Because of my age and because of previous accident I have, my car insurance rates are very high, so I can only get a very high deductible insurance plan, and so every time I drive there, I'm taking a gamble with my car, right? That's not really an expense, but it's a gamble. And so I really love it when I can walk to Redmond Library to do the session, and I get there at 4:30. I have other things I want to read at the library anyway, and I don't think to check my phone, because when I go to the library, I usually turn the phone down. It's a very quiet area, and so I wait until 4:50, and maybe I should text them, because usually they're there pretty early as well. And so when I pull out my phone, I noticed they had sent 2 text messages asking me if I could start at 6 o'clock. Which is kind of sneaky in my book, because it avoids using the word cancellation. And and it presumes that I don't have anything to do from 7 to 8, which is really annoying. And not only that, they didn't even know what time they were gonna get there, and they asked me if I could go there instead. And these are very good clients, and the rate they're paying is half decent. I mean, so I end up going there, but then they started to blame me, because what had happened was they wanted, originally it was 5 to 7, and I was hoping to see a friend after 7. And so instead, I go to stop by to see my friend at 6:30, and so I get there pretty late, and now they're blaming me for changing the schedule, so it's just kind of sneaky. And it taught me that sometimes if you want something big, you should just relax and ask for it. A few years ago, I was also, I was traveling to a conference, and somebody just comes up to me and asks me to switch seats with them. And I looked at his seat, and he was in the middle seat of economy, and I was sitting in an aisle seat of economy plus. And he just so calmly asked. He didn't even say why he wanted to switch seats, but he made it look like it was kind of important. And it was only a 3-hour flight, so I switched with him. It was kind of weird. Well, at the time, I was also, to be honest, I had ulterior motives. I was kind of lonely, and, in the back of my mind, I wondered, what's going to turn of this, right? Same thing with this client of mine. I guess, I kind of don't need the income from him right now, but at the same time, I'm kind of hesitating to sever the link because I wonder what lies behind them. You know, I think they're kind of playing on that emotion there. Anyways, the other lesson I learned is sometimes a good defense is a strong offense. So my client, he started to blame me for changing the schedule because let's face it, I can't change a schedule last minute, and something else has to give way, right? Like yesterday I had to go see my friend. So a couple of weeks ago, I made the mistake of not making a strong offense as my defense. So I am working at a new place, and earlier this week, about a month and a half ago, the janitor had complained about me. What had happened was I made a mess. It was my fault. The reason was that I was eating in the break area when somebody came in with a really strong perfume, which made me dizzy, and so I stepped out to wait for her to leave before I went. I was already finished eating. I hadn't cleaned up yet. And I stepped outside to wait for her to finish, and so I had my computer with me. I was writing a computer program, waiting for her to finish. I waited half an hour. I waited 45 minutes, and then it was an hour. There's no sign of her wanting to leave. And at this point, it's starting to get dark out, and I love to view outer space. So I go outside to take a few pictures of the moon and Mars. I think the moon and Mars were out that night. And I completely forgot about cleaning up, and I went to do something else, and I went to sleep. And next day, the janitor was very upset. And he asked me why I was hanging outside of the break room and leaving a mess behind. I don't know how he knew I was hanging out there for an hour, but somehow he knew. I apologized. I told him something important had come up on my computer, and I totally forgot. I didn't want to mention the perfume because at other workplaces, I know that has not turned up well. Sometimes people get very defensive about what perfume they want to use, and they're free to use it. I just can't be around it, and that's fine. But after that, every time there's been a mess in the break area, the janitor accuses me, even when it's not my mess. And there was only one mess I ever made. And at first, I accepted it. I even cleaned up after other people's messes just to keep the janitor happy. But that only fueled him. And at first, my main defense was just being very nice to him. Every Monday when I would go back to work, I would greet him and ask him how his weekend was and compliment him about how clean he's keeping everything. And he just kept accusing me. And it made me realize that I wasn't being offensive enough. And I was displaying defense the whole time, and the client yesterday kind of taught me a lesson, and maybe I need to change my approach with the janitor. Thanks for watching.